This is my new abode in Jaisalmer, and this is my room. This is an old valley, what I'm showing you now. Well, now what I'm showing you is part of the Jain temple, which lies obviously right there, but beyond that wall is its main mount. But my room's wall is in part a temple. I hope that has no negative effect on the Jain religion. This sandstone is unique in Jaisalmer in that it's a reddish or golden color, if you will, yellow color. This has been in the family for since it was built. These are the beautiful doors. And this is all inlaid chunks, well, not inlaid, but different chunks of carved relief work, whether it's wood or stone, I don't know. And these look like beautiful little panels that have been painted and put on there.
Is it yes? And they also come from Pakistan.
As we come out, we encounter the Deepak Hotel, which you can be sure at one time was a Haveli. Look at the magnificent carving. And this is looking to the left, which is where we're going to go. This is my first walkabout, so we'll just walk about. I'm just going to wander down here as I get touted to death. It used to be something, as you can see. This was stairway, believe it or not. Although God only knows who had the legs to climb up that thing. Carving is amazing. You can just imagine if they could get away with it. The super wealthy could come in here and just buy the front of this thing and ship it back to home. Major cricket match, World Championship. Here he goes. Wow. Probably not new, but it might well be a facsimile of what once was here as a drainage system. Doors magnificent as usual. Just love this stuff, I don't know why. Notice how this covered walkway has been made with those timbers and stone. Was there an antecedent to that arrangement in a prior building? Much of these, I'm sure, are private homes, particularly up above, with a lovely concept. A little bit of a platform for whatever the reason. Some other older buildings all about us. This is like Haveli town, only different. Beautifully carved stone. Guess who gets to walk around? Who wins this little tussle? He ran his motorcycle into it, but it doesn't seem inclined to want to move. He's decided it's easier for him to back up and go around somehow. It goes on and on. This whole town would have been one giant Haveli. Now we're inside the fortress itself. We'll see more of that. I'll do a walkabout tomorrow with purpose. And it's pretty worn, I think. We're approaching the outer limit of the fort. I don't know, but we'll keep exploring till we get thrown out. I'm now up on the original walls. Notice there's some carving there. Maybe just graffiti. This looks like it once was more than graffiti, as does that piece over there. So probably this wall was either restored or reconstructed. There's a new wall there. And of course you can see the classic promontory of a fortress. We're going to walk down here. The assumption this is all original and not too terribly dangerous. Stand up too quickly, or if the earthquake hits. It's kind of filthy in here. Colossal understatement. So what we've got here is a faux fortress wall. Maybe someday they'll carry this investment farther and actually clean it up. Shame to leave it a mess when tourists might find this to be a very interesting place to walk. We were standing right up there where those folks are. What these niches were for. Theoretically firing, but I can't see. Oh yes, I guess they could, but I can't imagine you'd hit something with a line of fire that this demonstrates. A little bit better if you had a kind of a scatter cannon, I guess, but notice they're not designed as Archimedes designed them to spread out as it gets to the outer portion of the wall and give you a greater range. Since this is a reproduction, who knows what the original did. A remnant of an old building, I'm sure. Looks like the remnant of a tower. Don't know if that's the case. This is a pretty bench, isn't it? Look at how here they've irreverently built another room up on top of that building. I could have gotten any number of rooms and dealt the price down, but it's not worth it. You can see at the end here is that this is not blocks of stone, but facing of stone, and perhaps rubble in between. It's facing right here. It looks like the opposite of what we've seen on some structures at the top of a wall where they were pointed up. Walking down another street parallel to the one we just came up. Saw this on another building and thought it was just a kind of like a small column that was jutting out as debris from the top, but it's a water spout. Now they crafted up with paint. Imagine if you could have a reproduction of this carved by a Mexican carvist for a reasonable price. I'm going to pan up through this section. Look at those beautiful little doors. Look at the fine detail. And the lovely balcony up above, which must have been a magnificent place to sit. Look a little closer at the detail.
Now
we're looking at that third floor balcony. This is particularly beautiful because of the cascading, if you will, or various planes of design. Now we're looking at those balconies that we had an end view of, so we could see what's underneath. Almost looking like stone. I lust after this thing here. I'd love to just tear it out and ship it with an anti-gravity machine of UPS. AG stands for UPS anti-gravity. There is some redos of probably antique type of styles. Really made anywhere in Asia and sold everywhere in Asia. Here we get a look at the superstructure. Whether this was always here or not, I don't know. The detail in the walls, which is separate individual panels, I suspect, put in place, may just be utilitarian, but notice it allows for airflow there. This looks a lot like the temple columns that I saw at that tomb and mosque in Delhi. But look at our little elephant guy. Well, this is the other side of the Jain temple from my room. Can you believe it? Beautiful carving. Reminds you of Angkor Wat. In small form, at least. Angkor Wat is so huge. You wonder what the symbology of all this would be also. I believe they've got a sewer line running right through the temple complex, and then some ghastly thing up on top of that, what I think is called a gorpa. Can you believe it? Generation scavengers. Namaste. How many of them will die from just plain malnutrition? We'll hang right and go down here. It's another big building built in the same manner, but a side alley. Isn't that a pretty architectural element? I think I'm walking down a street that's in between the one we first walked up and then the one that was parallel that we just walked down. And I think this one may be in between. But other than that, I'm lost. This is interesting because two balconies that look like they were identical at one time, crapped up on the left and still original on the right. And yet here, something very plain. My guess, the original panels have come off. It's interesting for washing clothes. I don't know. Haven't seen it before. Presumably, you could fill that with water, then put a stopper in there, something like a rag, and then after you pound it away, although it should have striations for cleaning, I would think, then you let it pour out. Fun of walking around the streets without a guide. So you can actually see and notice things, although a guide would point this out if they came here.
It's like sun.
Chatted with those two ladies from England, one from Newcastle. Well, on the intricacy of this, we don't have a really good view of it. Don't know if we can get one somehow. A couple more of those beautiful balconies. Guys, the carving is amazing, isn't it? There's a close-up of some of this, so you can see the work. Now remember, it is sandstone, so it's pretty easy to carve. But still, the work implied is outstanding. This is a pretty little window, isn't it? Shame that they crap this up. It'll take a miracle of work and money to clean it back up again. What temple this is, I don't know. One can hope it's mine, but I don't think it is. We're in a rather large square. Maybe that's my temple over there, but I don't think so. This is an old temple buried behind this tree. It's interesting because it looks like an intentionally long structure. Was it the temple and that's part of it? Or something else? Large building. Could this have been a valley? Pretty wealthy family. Here's another look at that temple that was hidden behind that tree. It looks like it's pretty much abandoned now. This looks so fresh. You just wonder if number one it is, or number two if it's been cleaned. And pretty detail of this door, these panels. This looks like one continuous panel, but the main picture element may be a separate piece, or it may be one big piece. Everybody should have one outside, but what's interesting are these depressions. Now, this one is for supporting a post, probably there was a canopy of some sort above us, but these look like grinding holes. Could this have been some apothecary or cosmetician's type site? Be for merit by providing water for the animals. Here, guess what wall these big stones came from? I think this is part of the fortress wall, but I'm not sure if it is or not. Everywhere you wander here is another alley, but what's fascinating here is look at that building that looks like it's leaning out. Buildings normally don't look like they're leaning out unless, guess what, they are. But that's a lot of building to be leaning out. No, I can't see the major portion, the cause of the lean, but you can see cracks. Vertical cracks and horizontal cracks all the way up in there. The town that's being economically killed right now by Mahdi's practices because tourism's cut dramatically. The smart people, who learned of this money demonetization before they came, before they booked, canceled out. I wanted to look at this a little bit more because of the detail in that large square there. Just imagine having that redundant challenge as an artist. They're a rather simple motif underneath that balcony, but with those stalactite things hanging down. Here we see a drainage for the fort. What's interesting is that's just more than enough height for soldiers to scramble up. So what was the strategy of that? Was there a grill work there that's no longer there? The magnificence of redundancy. We're in a place where people are going to try to do business. You'd wonder why anybody would come in here. There's a stairway up here. There's always been life beneath the fort, I'm sure. Somewhere there's a huge lake. May not be within our view. But here we have a nice view of how the castle might have looked. You can see the various towers, one here, one right there. Looks like another, so there were a great many towers. I'm going to walk rather quickly past this. As someone once quipped, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. I've walked into a pretty dead end. Again, over on the walls overlooking town, and here is the cannon. I suspect this is the only one they got, whether it was once here before really, or brought in to add some ambience, I have no idea. See, this was at least a double-walled fort, probably triple-walled as they retrenched deeper in from the enemy. They're camel seats, probably terminology is saddles. This is the view from the top of my Haveli guest house. Overlooking this magnificent temple, of which my room is a part. Here we get the reflection of the sun off of other portions of the temple. And we can continue to pan about and see more of that temple. I assume it's the same one. That nearby temple is a separate one. And here you get a look at what remains of what was probably a street of these Havelis. Some additions made to add use to them. Take a little bit of a look at that carving on that korpa. Thank you. It's interesting such carving should be there, seen by almost no one. In their day they didn't have binoculars, I don't believe. Maybe they did have telescopes. Is that intended to be a unicorn? No. It's this detail we saw earlier, only upside down and not on a temple. Isn't this a pretty little feature? And these doors apparently are not original, but they were made here.
Yes.
So I'm just wandering around down here looking for a restaurant that I can get some takeaway from. How I'm going to make my choice is anybody's guess. Ideally what you're looking for is where all the locals are, rather. So we'll see. Authorized bang shop, I think that means marijuana. Mom and her kid out for a night on the town. It's another subsection of the market area. I'll probably spend 2 or 3 days here since I'm running 6 days ahead, getting out of Delhi fast and whipping through those Havalis because of Sukar, the guide who did such a great job for me. While you see crippled dogs, crippled people, crippled horse, probably because these motorcycles hit them. This street of shops keeps going as long as people have enough imagination and initiative to start a business. When it's like any boom town, it explodes for the tourism that was coming here and then rapidly deflates into economic depression. Vegetables and so forth available. Their main street, I think, that goes down into the city. I know he could get somebody else on there. Look how casually she rides on the back in these tight little quarters he must accommodate for. A quiet alley, which I think leads back to an alley we walked down earlier, or street I should say. But quite weathered as opposed to the others we saw, which are almost too good. One wonders why the difference. This one's pretty, but doesn't look as sharp and pristine and clean as the others did. The area I'm in just be the original cell or loci of development, and so it got cleaned up first. Here's the next gate. Would have been most intimidating, don't you think? Plenty of big ports to shoot down at this point. Now we circle around, and these twisty turns were a very good defense also. They're forcing somebody to come around a tight turn where you have them completely at your mercy, and then they have to get through another big gate. Following my age-old practice of walking behind women, get through that gate safely before the next tuk-tuk assaults it. And now the next, I think, is the main gate, but I'm not sure. But you can see here what you were confronted with if you even got this far. It's really a gate within a gate, if you will. I think we hooked right around here. Yeah, where this big complex is. I was going so fast, on the back of that motorcycle through crowds with other motorcycles coming up behind us and roaring past us. Pretty dang scary. I just held my hands on my knees figuring I could afford broken fingers but not broken knees. Another gate, a lesser gate. I think I worked my way around this, actually remembering enough to get there. We turn left up at this blue door. I sparked it up a little bit. You wonder if there's any legitimate empathy for the tourists in this area. In some, I think there must be in some of these folks. Room filled with gewgaws. Some of it might actually be old. This lady's job is to deal with cleaning up local trash on the street. Probably she's from the lowest caste. Belong through the neighborhood. She has to get somebody else to handle that. She could do it, but my guess is she's not allowed to touch anybody else's stuff. It's now morning, probably 8:39. Had my first success. I exchanged a 2,000 rupee bill for 10 tens because of the rumor that Modi might eliminate the 2000s in the next month or a couple weeks. This man and I joked because he was running a string up there and it looked like a kite, but it was a very, very small kite. Here's our next little gate. Pretty simple. You wonder if this was its original design. That's too massive for it not to have been. Probably that was literally just a guard point, another guard point. I wonder how old these doors are. These look like they're about to fall in. Certainly they haven't been used for a long, long time, so they could well be original. Here we have another gate. These are all numbered by Lonely Planet, but there's no number on them. Maybe known that way to the locals, but I don't know. And here coming out into the main area, I think. Yep, not quite the main area, that's just one more. There's, I think, the main exit down there. But it's not main in the sense of grandeur, merely in the first or the last, depending which direction you're going. A similar pan to that which I did last night. Notice those stones that cross between those typical designs that we see, detail that we see. But here an entire wall constructed about, I'm sure that's recent. Perhaps those buildings there are havelis that were done after the fort was converted basically into residential. And notice the large wall, retaining wall that was created.